We're starting a new kind of supermarket. We are the first circular supermarket in the UK, and the first new supermarket in this country since 2002. Ocado launched a very long time ago. It was like 5 years before the first iPhone. And we think it's time for a bit of a change. Grocery has an enormous pollution opportunity. So 40% of all the plastic waste in this country comes from grocery shopping. Greenpeace did a study in spring last year where they found an enormous quantity at the start. 97 billion items a year get generated by households in the UK. So it's enormous. So what we do is we make it easy for people to buy groceries without any packaging waste. And this is it basically means everything is in reusables. There's no plastic or other packaging waste. We think we can save, in our mid-case model, we think we can save 200 million items of packaging waste from even entering the waste stream in the first 5 years. And it's like 150 million a year and rising after that. And this is 7.6 million tons of CO2 in the first 5 years and almost 5 million tons a year after that. We've done a simplified LCA, which has got all those numbers. I'm happy to share it. And the idea really is to make it as easy as possible. So absolutely no hassle. This has to be frictionless. And it's all in one place, no decanting, no customer work, make it very easy. We have got a waiting list. They're saying generally nice things. I'm going to skip through some of the slides quite quickly, so some with some words on. We've done some research with our waiting list and with our networks and stuff, asking people if they think they can shop sustainably currently and if they'd be interested in trying our service. This really is the key slide. So our model for how we do the future of grocery. So fully circular means everything requiring some kind of container goes in reusable containers that we collect and clean for reuse. We're going to run locally distributed hubs. And so not like a Get Here or one on every street corner, but more like this is the way to do grocery delivery efficiently. Even Tesco do it like this now. They have 20 what they call urban fulfillment centers, where it's regionally distributed. You want drops close together, you want efficient delivery routes, and you want fast pick speeds. So we're going to set up as a flexible subscription. And the reason for this really is it's the background of myself and my co-founder, but it's also the key to doing reuse well is being very good at container recovery. So part of being a flexible subscription is we want to close the loop and keep it really tight. And to do that, we have to do it ourselves, which means we're going to go to people's houses to pick stuff up. So we go and we collect stuff when we drop things off, and we go high cadence. So we sell people high cadence products that they consume quickly, which means we're selling fresh stuff. So now we're doing your grocery shop. And that's kind of how the evolution of the thinking of the model came about. We're online only, and we're going to build a lot of our own tech. And the idea with range is wide, not deep. So category coverage, we want to cover, in the first year, we think we can do 40% of what you normally buy in a grocery shop. Year 5 is 80% and up, with a low SKU range. So we cover all the type of things you'd like to buy, but we do it in a way that's not tons of choice on each individual thing. I'm going to speed up because I've just seen the time go fast. It's 5 minutes, right?
You got 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Okay, cool. So the reuse order cycle is pretty straightforward. You set up your recurring order. It's like a standing order. You're associated to a hub, and fulfillment happens from that hub. And we pick up empty containers when we drop off. This is a monster. The revenue slide is crazy. The market itself is enormous as well. So if you can sell people groceries on a subscription, it's potentially incredibly lucrative business. Market is ginormous, just the biggest of all the industries, and the space is very big, and there's lots of space for new companies, and fragmentation is one of the current trends. Mintel cites fragmentation and concerns over sustainability as the 2 core trends, and then there's things around legislation, circular economy, and consumer sentiment, which are current and very relevant. Target customer, busy parent, top 40% of households by income, wants to do more eco-friendly stuff, but doesn't have the time. Competition, supermarkets is the short version of this slide. Lots of secondary competition, but supermarket is the main one. Price position, Ocado Waitrose own brand. So mid-premium, if we have to choose, we'll go high rather than stay in the middle, because in a recession, the last time there was a pre-pandemic recession, 2008, people bought high and low and the middle got squeezed. You don't want to get caught in the middle. Customer acquisition is my background. We've done some validation with looking at other similar businesses, and also done some light testing. We think we can do customers for a good number. Zero Wear kind of looks like this. This is the first version. This is how we'll start. It's quite cool. We're not going to use RFID. We're going to use etched QR codes for tracking. 200 uses for a container, and superior design versus throwaway stuff. Some stuff on why we think we'll continue to scale. Basically, because we're a modular hub setup, as we continue to launch hubs, we'll get better at it. and our stuff will get better, and we'll have higher AOVs, and we'll improve as we scale. We'll be improving, so each launch is better than the last. And the teams that are probably the last things.
And yeah, your time is up, but I'll let you get it anyways.
So myself and Mark were co-founders at a company called Tails.com. We've got backgrounds in D2C subscription commerce, Grays, and I've done contracting at Harry's, and Mark was early Love Film and Zoopla. We've got advisors in sustainability, food, ops, and more tech people. And that's most of the, I think that's it actually. So I'm gonna stop sharing right there. Sorry, I rattled through that quickly. 5 is quicker than I normally do it.
No, it's all good. You had to improvise on the fly. It was very good. Ted, do you want to take things away this time?
Yeah, I'm curious how much this cuts into your margin and what the labor is like to swap things from one single-use containers to multi-use.
Yeah, so swap as in like how just getting food processed in that way.
So are you taking bulk and distributing into reusable containers, or are you also taking single serving items and swapping into reusables?
Understood, a mixture. So some stuff we'll repackage and some stuff we will send to the suppliers and they will put it in our packaging. And generally speaking, that doesn't really make a difference in terms of the cost of the scales we're going to be buying at. It's kind of how food works already. If you think that people who make or process food put them in lots of different types of containers already, it's kind of the same. We just have to have it in our minds that our containers will fit within their systems, as well as all the considerations about working well for customers and stuff. Was that what you meant?
Yeah, that's answering my question. Thank you. That was my biggest one. I'm also concerned about customer churn. I mean, do you have stats or projections on how long you can hold a customer? Can you get to I presume the biggest loss of containers is probably when you have a final customer and you don't make that last trip back.
Yeah, so we have we've modeled quite pessimistic churn. So we're pre-revenue, pre-launch, so we have everything is assumptions, but we have plenty of experience in this kind of business model and lots of reference points. We think we've been quite pessimistic with the estimates, and actually think this will be quite grocery is a promiscuous thing anyway. People tend to choose their supermarket based on which one is closest, but this system we think will be quite sticky, because once you have our containers in your house and are returning them at variable rates, you're kind of in the system and it's quite hard to get out of. And our experience of D2C says make it easy for people to cancel and leave. We will track your containers, so we'll know what you have, and as you come to the end of your subscription, we'll be able to give you a grace period for returns and probably charge you if not. But yeah, we think retention will be one of the key things, and think it will be quite sticky. Currently, the other examples in grocery at the moment tend to be delivery pass based. And I think it's something like 40% of grocery shoppers have a delivery pass of some sort. So that people like that sort of subscribe, save type element to it. So yeah, if you can get people to buy all their groceries in this way, though, it can be really, really good. So
that's great. Thanks, Paul.
What is the cost comparison for a consumer when looking at other solutions that are already on the market?
So there's nothing directly comparable here. There are some examples. Modern Milkman is probably the closest business model in this country. I know they started cheap and then had to hike prices. The other variations of circular stuff tend to be really expensive, and there are sort of two broad reasons for that. The two main ways of doing or going and doing your shopping, so online or in store, the existing retail network doesn't really support circular things. So all the circular things are very high effort for customers, so cost in terms of effort, as well as you need to invest in jars, you need to change your system, you need to do a lot of extra stuff. And the retail networks as well. Like if you're trying to do circular, there are only a few examples I think are doing okay with it. The problem is you generally have to pay a courier to go and pick it up as well as drop it off. So circular D2C stuff out of one hub, who are using third-party delivery, third-party collection is expensive. So I mean, even if you try and return something to Amazon, you're probably taking it to drop-off point, and they're like enormous delivery network, right? So two-way infrastructure for this stuff doesn't really exist, and which is why we will build and operate one. So essentially, what we're building is a two-way system for circular stuff. And the sort of real extension of what we're doing is, if this works for supermarkets and for groceries, it will work for clothes and electronics and toys and all the other circular things. So really what you're building then is the rails for the reuse economy. And it's a much bigger sort of infrastructure sort of mindset. So cost comparison is difficult, and the way we will think about it from a customer point of view, because really what we want people to think about with our stuff is it's just where you buy your groceries. It just happens to be that there is no throwaway packaging. And so really, like when we pitch in terms of price for consumers, we're just saying Ocado Waitrose sort of on-brand kind of price point. The containers are interesting. There's definitely an upfront cost on them. We're modeling 200 uses, which is pretty much what everyone in reuse is using, and we're talking about trying a number of different materials. Over time, we think we can get it to a place where it's very competitive with throwaway packaging. So we build it into the cost of the product. We don't charge more. We don't charge a deposit, and because we're tracking the stuff, we should be able to. We think there'll be some sort of charge system at the very end, or if you never return stuff, or we know you've kept it, or something like that. So. But in terms of like your cost of your groceries should be comparable with the Ocado Waitrose territory.
200 seems incredibly ambitious. Assume just like the kid brings it somewhere, it gets thrown in the garbage, you go to someone's house and forget to bring it, you leave it at work, you get stepped on. 200 seems like a lot.
We model a loss rate as well. So think of them as different things. So if it wasn't broken or lost or accidentally chucked in the wrong bin, and it gets returned properly each time, then 200 uses, which is every single reuse startup I've spoken to is using that number. Most of the stuff is made out of polypropylene. We're also looking at things like borosilicate glass, which is Pyrex, and a number of other things, rPET and things. So in terms of straight up uses, it's in line with everyone else. We model a small loss rate, which is like the stuff you said, like it'll just get broken or dropped or accidentally put in the recycling. And then we also model in our actual financial model, I actually use 150 uses, but 200 is kind of the normal one. So.
What's your actual loss rate model of that? So I wouldn't model based off of what other people are modeling. Like Blue Apron had a great business model and everyone modeled off of a similar business model until they realized that it got worse and worse over time. And that would be one thing I would be worried about here is, does it need that many reuses for it to make sense? Because if it needs that many, 200 reuses, how often is it going back to the grocery store? Maybe once or twice a week? That's
like 4 years of use. Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah. But that's the point, right?
No, that's the point. But I'm saying, can you really assume it's not going to get misplaced at some point or lost or brought to the wrong place?
I see what you mean. So sorry. So the way we model our loss rate is separate. So we say it'll get used this many times, and then we chuck a number in for the speed at which we lose containers. And I can tell you what that is, like just as an example. And also this is just an assumption, and we've kind of done it by working through what kind of thing we think will happen. And like we've actually got it quite high. We've got a 3% return like failure rate every week, which is really high, but it still works. So like we don't think it'll be quite that bad. We do think we'll lose some. And obviously we're doing an interesting thing with the design of the containers. There's a lot of stuff in the space at the moment about materials and tracking software and things, but the thing that no one's really managed to get or to solve is, how do I sell you this stuff in a thing that I can then get back off you? Like, it sounds really daft, but the actual use the circular system bit is the bit that no one's really managed to solve. And so excuse me. So what we're doing is our first year in our pilot, we're going to try a lot of different materials. So we have our sort of starting point, but the idea is to test a few different things, because there's testing from sort of operational point of view and from customer point of view. So this is the sort of, I don't know if you've seen the chat from Google, Tom something's video about the desire path, bring the customers on the design journey with you. If you, I don't know if customers are going to care that polypropylene scratches and that it taints and it changes color. Or that glass is heavy, or and then from an operational point of view, there's some interesting challenges. Plastic is really hard to dry. It's quite easy to make it clean, really hard to make it dry. And if you want it to be safe, it has to be dry. So there's, glass is much easier to do that with. So there's some stuff like that where we're going to learn. So we're very deliberately doing a pilot so that we can test out a number of different types of container materials as we go through. And at the end of our pilot, we'll take everything we've learned from a customer D2C point of view, so your normal metrics of acquisition and churn and retention and AOV and stuff, and also what we've learned about containers, we'll put them into a new container redesign project, and then we'll take everything from that into the next fundraise. So what we're doing in this first year is really trying to understand how you make circular work.
There's a ton of competition. How do you make the business model work from a venture perspective?
So there is competition in grocery for sure, but it's such an enormous space. So people spend on average something like £5,000 a year on their groceries. Our target audience more like 7. The amount of customers is enormous. There's so many households. So there's a lot of room for new entrants. And I spun through it very quickly in the deck. But before the cost of living crisis, Mintel were calling out 2 major trends going forward. One is fragmentation to new ways to shop, and the other is concerns over sustainability. So we think we have an edge that gives us a good reason to try us. And if we do a good job with execution, we think it would be compelling. So there's definitely shifts in new ways of shopping. The pandemic drove a lot of online stuff, but inside of that, there's a lot of stuff around new ways of buying different types of food. And Mintel count things like the meal kits and the veg box delivery companies and the direct wine companies and stuff as part of their the way they assess groceries. But there's so many. We're a bit behind here, but around particularly Europe, there's an awful lot of new stuff in grocery, like an awful lot. We look at Holland a lot, CRISPR and Picnic, Peter Pot, who are very similar to this there. In the States, the Rounds, $38 million Series A in October last year. Peter Pot was 9 million in December 21. I think they.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When you have 17,000 different armies fighting, they all kill each other.
But the thing is, we're first at this here. That's what's so strange. So like, I feel like we're, every time I speak to investors, I do feel a little bit like we're a bit early for investment. I think we're bang on time for customers. I think we're a bit early for the investors that don't see it yet, which is an interesting way around. But yeah, in other countries, there are some, but there's not many. So I'll say 1 in Holland, one in America, 1 in France called La Traînée. In Australia, there's one called Returner, one of the siblings who founded Keep Cup. And there's a bunch of other smaller variations, but sort of straight up, we're doing all your groceries with no packaging waste. That's unusual, and there's not that many of them yet.
Okay. Melissa or Eric?
Yeah, just one quick question. Just this is also piggybacking off of Matt's line of questioning in terms of like reducing loss and all that. And this is just a personal curiosity question. Have you thought about gamifying the system where you engage with your customers to say, if you come back 20, 30, 50 times, you get X% discount to kind of keep the retention high?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much really cool stuff we can do with that. I generally like games as well, so my brain goes to that direction as well. But lots of really interesting things we can do about incentivization, and that runs across not just things like the return of containers, but also things that you can build in a system, things like friend referrals and other things that can get you points or whatever reward system we choose to use. But yeah, I definitely think it's worth including that, and because we'll have such good data, so we will have very, very good what people buy in their shopping data, because all the aiming eventually to do most of the basket, but also we'll have tracked every single container, how it gets used, where it went, what you bought. So as well as rewarding people for being compliant and good about their returns. And we could even do things like, we know you must have finished that thing because it run past its expiry date, but the container wasn't in the box this week. If you add it next week, points, or like there's stuff like that you can do to nudge people and remind people. And so a lot of potentially quite clever things we can do in the interaction inside of it. So we like that quite a lot. And then sort of extensions of that, you can do, when you know so much about what people are buying, you can do all kinds of like smart recommendations. You like this, try that. Here's a free sample, try it next week. So yeah, definitely interested in gamifying quite a bit of it. I think we can, in a way that really improves the experience a little bit as well.
Yeah, and just another question is, I'm sorry if I missed it, like how much are you raising, and how are you planning to allocate that capital across your business needs?
You didn't miss it. It was the last slide that I didn't get to. So it was so we have gone out with an initial target of 250K to fund the pilot. This is a minimum number, and we're currently 60% committed. We have investments include Low Carbon Innovation Fund, some senior and early team from places like Gray's and HelloFresh and Harry's, and then we have funding from another source as well, which I can't talk about yet because there's an announcement embargo. It's another 181K. So in total so far, we're on 330 or so, and we are aiming to get it up over 500 if we can. So yeah, 250 is a minimum. We can do it. So we're already in a place where we can do it. We're just trying to build out to a bigger total.
And the use of proceeds will go towards marketing, building out the team, getting more products in the market. How would it be used? Yeah,
so we have this this plan of this pilot for the first year. the idea with that is the first 3-4 months we're looking for our first hub. It's going to be very deliberately small. And then when we move in, we will do the next 6 months or so of learning, and then taking all of that on to the next round. So a mixture of places. A big chunk of it is just product, but that's going to get covered by sales. So we're cash generative. And so about 40% of early costs will be product, but it'll get covered. Of the rest, about 20% on team, about 20% on rent and OPEX, and about 10% on CapEx. So, and it's actually quite low on marketing. So we currently have less than 10% on marketing. We don't need a huge number of people to get the early learnings that we need. And the small hub won't support a huge number of people either. So with the sort of the experimentation, the testing we've done on what acquisition cost will be, and with the sort of benchmarking we've done against other businesses, we think it makes sense where we're at with it. So is that enough of an answer? I have got full model we can share.
Oh, that's perfect.
Any last questions, guys?
I just have a quick one. Are there any regulatory challenges with product labeling, or I guess in this case, like lack of product labeling for the end consumer?
Yeah, so this is actually a really great question. So food labeling is strict. There's something, so labeling is interesting. We currently intend to label dynamically, which means we will label as we pick. And we will print dynamically, but the idea is to do it in we think we found a way of doing it without actual labels. So we think we can print directly onto the bottles with washable ink that will come off the next time we do stuff. But there's quite a few things on safety. So excuse me. There's a thing called Natasha's Law here, which covers a lot of the food regulations. So food labeling regulation. We would also like to do carbon labeling. And there's some quite interesting stuff we can do if we label dynamically, where if you're buying food from one of our hubs, the hub is local to you. So quite a nice thing we can do with where we do have local suppliers, which is something we'd like to try and do. Customers care about seasonal and local stuff as well. We think we can call that out. So we think we can be like, this is from so-and-so's farm, and these are the reasons why that's really great. So from labeling point of view, yes, there's also a bunch of other stuff. We've spoken to a company called, I'm not going to name the company actually. We're leading industry experts on shelf life testing and testing things after they've been cleaned. So to make sure everything's very thorough, we'll be very strict on how we set up our HACCP and stuff, and sort of safety accreditation and things. So because our networks include people, we've worked at Grays and Tails of both food businesses, and a lot of the people who were at Grays and Tails came out of Innocent. So there's a lot of people in our network who are very good at food safety and stuff as well. So we're confident a lot of those challenges will be met quickly as well. So, but yeah, labeling is a really interesting one. We think we can do clever stuff with it, but there's also really interesting. Well, not really. We need to meet certain rules. So,
thanks.